Today, I'm joined by Tommy Hansen. Tommy has built the talent machine at Juniper Square. He's led recruiting through rapid growth and cultural transformation.
What excites me right now is probably more of what happens after top of funnel. One is AI interviewers. I'm really excited about this. I know some people are very hesitant and a little bit nervous, but I think if done with intentionality, it can be created in a really impactful and cool way.
I want to hear how you're upskilling and up-leveling your recruiters on your team to embrace these tools. What does that look like from a professional development standpoint with the people that report to you?
As we look at what skills are going to be needed in the future, I think really being able to tell the story of the business, really understanding the business, and really working on that business acumen is going to be critical.
Hey, RecOps friends, are you still losing hours every week to interview scheduling chaos? What if you could eliminate the back and forth, cut scheduling time by 90%, and actually get those recruiter hours back on the hiring desk where they belong? That's exactly why teams are turning to Rooster, the native interview scheduling platform built inside Workday Recruiting that finally makes interview logistics fast, seamless, and predictable. With Rooster, you connect directly to your Workday system. No extra tools, no disconnected workflows, and instantly let candidates self-schedule with one-click booking links. It handles time zone and language differences automatically, sends branded confirmations and reminders via SMS, email, or WhatsApp, and keeps interviewers, coordinators, and candidates in sync without constant manual follow-ups. And it's not just about speed. Rooster helps you see the true cost of scheduling inefficiencies with its TAS metric, so ops teams can track and improve the parts of the process that slow you down the most. Whether your team hires locally, globally, or somewhere in between, Rooster cuts errors, saves 10 plus recruiter hours per week, and creates a candidate experience that reflects the quality of your brand. If you're ready to stop chasing calendars and start hiring with confidence, visit rooster.us and schedule a demo today. Your recruiters will thank you. Now, on with the show. What's up, everybody? Today, I'm joined by Tommy Hansen. Tommy has built the talent machine at Juniper Square. He's led recruiting through rapid growth and cultural transformation. Over the past 6 years, Tommy's helped scale global hiring, built a values-driven talent function from the ground up, and helped shape Juniper Square's mission to make private markets more accessible. He serves as the chair of the company's Pride ERG, creating safe, authentic spaces for LGBTQIA plus communities while driving inclusion across the business. Tommy, I'm so psyched to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Brandon.
Where are you based and what are you working on?
Yeah, I'm currently based in Minneapolis, exploring a move out to the Bay Area in a few months, which is exciting. And we are currently wrapping up our Q4. Our fiscal year ends at the end of January, so we're in a huge push. So very busy with hiring right now.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, always our top quarter. Yeah, so we're hiring across North America, Europe, and India right now, primarily across engineering. Our fund administration org, which I can tell a little bit more about, is that's been a really cool journey over the last 5 years. And then a lot of like our strategy support roles to help sustain our growth.
It's awesome. I don't know, man. There's just something about getting those job offers across the line, making people's dreams come true over the holiday break.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have always had Q4 be our biggest hiring year over the last 5 years. And so I think we're going to set another record this year in terms of hiring, and a lot of it's going to come from this quarter. So we've been doing about 40 hires per month, and we're on the 5th today. I think we're already at 20 this month. So just like in the last week. So it's been a wild push towards the end of the year.
Let's go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How big is your team? Tell me a little bit about like your structure of your group, your tools, your systems, and your team. Like this is building the talent machine. I want to hear it all.
Yeah, I joined Juniper Square back at the beginning of 2020. It was a wild time. And at that point, we were probably about 100 employees, a little under 20 million in revenue. We had outsourced all of our recruiting prior to that. An RPO called Bink, which was later acquired by Robinhood. They were our RPO for a couple of years, really helping us get to that 100 employee standpoint, but it was post Series C and it was time to like really scale up the company now from headcount standpoint. And so I was part of the initial 5 to come in and help build out the team. At first, I was one of the strategic ICs, really looking to help build out our go-to-market, fund administration, a lot of our non-technical roles. And then as the company continued to take off, was able to take on bigger and bigger roles. I think it was like month 4, started building a team underneath me. And now I've been really fortunate to see us through a lot of growth. Since 2020, we've now grown to 1,000 employees. We're almost in the upper 100s in terms of our revenue, growing at over 30% year over year. Our talent team, like many, grew quite big, and then we had to scale back. So at one point, I think with long-term contractors, we had hit about 30, scaled back to the lowest point was about 5, and now the team is currently 11. But it's been really fun to help build a lot of the functions from idea to scale and then help us go internationally. When I first joined, we were really only present in the US, then we expanded to Canada, then India, which we've grown from 0 to about 300 employees over the last 2 years. And then we recently started expanding into Europe as well. My team is quite lean but mighty, and excited to share a lot of the success with you today. But we've grown over the last year from about 5 people to 11. So we have myself overseeing the global function. I have a senior manager underneath me who helps manage part of the team and really owns a lot of the day-to-day of our fund administration side of our business, which is growing rapidly. Then a couple of senior recruiters. And then we actually shifted away from the traditional RC role and sourcer role over the last year and created an associate recruiter level, which has 3 core areas, which is helping with the scheduling, but the goal there is to help us use AI to reduce that. They're helping with sourcing and then RecOps. So they're basically getting like a rotational program all in one now that wherever AI takes us, they're going to be able to adapt and take on bigger roles as they continue to grow. So team is pretty mighty. A lot of the team is new this year, but able to come in and drive a lot of impact quickly for us.
That's awesome. I'd love to hear about that. Like this recruiting operations, recruiting coordinator, systems, data, all of the remit that has traditionally been dispersed across the team is kind of bucketed into this new term RecOps.
Yeah.
Which is an evolution, I think, of a lot of those fragmented types of requirements in various job descriptions in a talent org. So hearing you describe it as a rotational program brings me hope for the field, because like I knew going into this, you'd be doing some cool stuff and cutting edge, because I think gone are the days of sourcing is like a junior recruiter, and gone are the days of the ATS admin just being an order taker.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit more about your idea for this rotational program and why implement it now.
Yeah, I think it's part of a bigger initiative of like, where are we going with AI and what does that mean for recruiting and the workforce in general? And as you have heard a lot about like junior talent, it's like really tough for them right now. So like, I think something that's not being talked about enough is like, how are we developing this next generation of recruiters and talent more broadly? So as we were starting our AI transformation this year, I wanted to make sure that was paired with really prioritizing the development of my team. And like, how can we start thinking differently? And while the associate recruiter might not be like groundbreaking, like it's a really good first step towards experimenting to figure out like what works for our business and like where is the industry going. Some things that we're thinking about doing is like, how do we embed our recruiters more into the business? So about a year ago, I worked with my head of people to get the same budget that our HR VPs have to be embedded in the business. We have the same one for recruiters now. And so as we look at what skills are going to be needed in the future, I think really being able to tell the story of the business, really understanding the business and really working on that business acumen is going to be critical. So it's really important that we start embedding them even deeper into Juniper Square across all levels. And then it was starting to really think about, okay, what does the talent team competencies and structure look like if AI were to take over 10% of what we do today, 20%, 50%, depending on what we do. And there's talks about like, how do you upskill the team and take on broader responsibilities that a recruiter typically wouldn't have? But right away, we had a need to really look at that RC and sourcer level. And that's what came up with the associate recruiter kind of rotational program. RecOps is probably the thing I wanted the longest. And right now we have some fractional consultants who are phenomenal helping us right now. But something that I'm thinking about around that one is, to your point, like the traditional RecOps, I think that is gone. It is like one of the most strategic roles in TA for so long that has not gotten the credit that it needs. But finally, I think AI and like the skills that these folks have is finally bringing it to the forefront that it deserves. So like, how do we maximize that right now? So I think of RecOps as more of like talent strategy and engineering. So someone I admire greatly is Tracy over at Zapier, and they have Casey and this incredible team of what they're calling like talent engineers now, I believe is the title that they're using. And they're really like engineering the workflows and the automation and the AI to help streamline a lot of the manual tasks. So I think if you think about like the historical RecOps and now pair it with that mindset, like that's the future of where we're going. So I'm actually going to be hiring for this role here very shortly. And I'm really looking for that strategic builder. And we'll see from an org design standpoint where that all takes us as we look to automate more and more with AI and our tech stack.
Love that. I feel like there's a lot of applications of AI in the candidate funnel. When we think about breaking down the recruiting process from talent attraction through onboarding, what are some areas of the application of AI that you're excited about when it comes to recruiting?
Absolutely. I think right away it quickly became all about top of funnel, like sourcing, right? And you saw Juicebox and their rapid growth. You then saw MetaView coming out with their sourcing tool. Gem, of course, adding more AI features to their existing sourcing capability. So that got crowded really quickly. And I think everyone like quickly bought up one of those. And I think it works well. I don't know if it's like as revolutionary as we thought it would be in 12 months from when I feel like a lot of them really started taking off, but we're seeing meaningful progress. So what excites me right now is probably more of what happens after top of funnel, right? Like after sourcing, after scheduling, what comes next? And there's a couple areas. One is AI interviewers. I'm really excited about this. I know some people are very hesitant and a little bit nervous, but I think if done with intentionality and focus and having both the business in mind and the candidate in mind, it can be created in a really impactful and cool way. So hopefully we'll dive into that a little bit further. And then the other one is thinking more around how do you go a step further in terms of the planning process? So how do you cut down like time that a role goes from like approved by finance to kicking it off? And how can we use some more AI there to streamline that a little bit more? Again, I think these are exciting. I don't know if they're like what's going to move TA like broadly, right? Like I think if you think about the next 5 years, there's going to be a lot more to it than anything discussed thus far, but I think they're pretty impactful. So AI interviewers, we are about to trial those. And I think that's going to be one of our big bets next year.
I love that. Before we jump in on AI interviewers, I want to hear how you're upskilling and up-leveling your recruiters on your team to embrace these tools, to learn a little bit about how it actually works. What does that look like from a professional development standpoint with the people that report to you?
Yeah, we're really lucky at Juniper Square that this is like a top-down priority from our executive team, but it is also the transformation right now is mainly owned by the people team. So my boss, Victoria Reimers, is really the one tasked with how are we going to upskill all of our Juniper Square employees with AI. So it actually started back last spring. We had what we called AI Demo Week, and each functional leader, so myself included, had to pitch how they're going to transform their department using AI to our executive team. And whoever won got their project funded by our CEO and didn't have to take out of their own department budget, which was really cool. But that kind of laid the foundation of this is a priority for the company. It brought some fun and creativity to it. And then from there, each department had to then work on what their roadmap would be throughout the year. From that point, like immediately, it was about bringing in the team. So they felt like they were a part of it this whole time. And something being discussed only at the leadership level. And people had that anxiety of what is this going to look like? So I think that is critical for anyone going through this transformation right now. And then the second key thing I think that we did was we did trainings across the company that were led by the people team in partnership with different leaders. So product management, IT, different strategy folks across Juniper Square. The very first company-wide training we did was an intro to AI. I actually led this with a colleague, and we strategically wanted it to be from the people team, because if you have it from like an engineering team, people are just automatically going to assume this is really technical. They're going to feel intimidated. But if you can bring like the people team into it and say, hey, here's an intro to AI so you understand how AI has evolved, what it's doing today, how to think about it, it felt a little bit more approachable. At that point, we were probably about 700 employees when we did that, maybe 650. Thought maybe we would get 200 people. We didn't make it mandatory. I think we had 475 people show up for that training, which was really cool. And so, hey, there's this appetite for this. And then we did like a series of trainings on prompt engineering, how to use Gemini, which is like our approved tool to use across the enterprise. how to use AI for like career coaching so people could take a little bit more control of their career coaching and not just feel like they're waiting for their performance review to be able to work on that. So those trainings really helped to lay this foundation across the company.
So cool that you ran this rollout through the people team.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to say, I think I've grown a lot with my AI knowledge, that like, it wasn't like I was like a top super user and that's why I was like selected to do it. So again, any of those who are working on this transformation right now, a lot of times it's just go with it. You don't have to be the expert to help drive impact. So from there with the recruiting team, I got a lot of energy from doing that AI demo week. I'll say I didn't win, but I did still get my project funded. So in the end, I won. Everyone was really excited about what I pitched that week. And from there, I knew that quickly I had to keep that momentum going with the recruiting team because they got to be a part of hearing what I was going to pitch. And everyone was like curious about it and asking me how the prep was going. So from there, we started thinking about what do we think we could do over the next year to change the way that we're hiring now. And then we actually had an offsite. And for a whole afternoon, I met with my team and we whiteboarded out what do we think we could automate today? What AI do we have available to have AI truly embedded into our process? Where do we think we could be a year or two from now? And then we did some like brainstorming of what could long-term look like. And through that, they all got to voice their opinion. And I think everyone felt really empowered that I get to be a part of this journey. And regardless of like where we go, I'm going to be able to say I was at a company experimenting with all of this. Because it really is like those who are going to be on the side of having AI versus those who don't, right? When people think about they're going to be job eliminations or what have you. So I really wanted to make sure my whole team felt like they were on that side of with AI. And that's something broadly across Juniper Square that we're doing. So that offsite was really exciting because we got to hear some of their creativity. They got to hear what I was thinking. And then from there, we narrowed it down to some of the key things that we wanted to do right away. So we implemented Bright Hire. That was the one I actually pitched at AI Demo Week. We got Team Ohana, which is a workforce planning tool in partnership with our finance team. We're currently implementing that right now. We talked about like our vision for this AI interviewer, and we're starting those trials right now. And now we're starting to talk, what do we think we could build so that we're not always so reliant on a third party or like our vendors' roadmaps to be able to drive the impacts that we want to make.
I love that. It's this combination of what is in market and then what can we just build ourselves. Yep. Because there's no end-to-end agentic AI solution. I think it does require that element of getting your team enthusiastic to learn and use a technology that there's a lot of fear-mongering around. Yeah. Especially in recruiting. There's always that debate, like, is AI going to replace recruiting? Right now, no. Right now, it's all about using great tools, creating great processes, and bolting AI on to our existing process. But one of my predictions, maybe in the next couple of years, is we'll see an entirely new recruiting process or hiring process dictated by AI. But right now, it's like AI on existing. There are a few areas in the candidate funnel where complete end-to-end agentic AI would break down, just doesn't exist from a technology standpoint today to do it without a human in the loop. Yep. But to hear you talk about the fun and the playfulness around incentivizing your team to learn and implement these tools is really cool. Good on your executive team for making it fun.
Yeah, it has been a ton of fun. And I agree with a lot of your predictions. I think we're still just seeing the surface of where this is going. I don't think it is maybe evolving quite as much as people predicted 12 months ago. And a lot of that is dictated by all the regulations too, right? And we'll continue to see how those evolve. We meet with our legal team once a month to go through all the updates too. So for those who are going through this transformation, your best friends need to be your legal team too. They keep us up to date on everything. And that dictates a lot of what we're able to do. But I think this last year, like I was having a conversation with some industry friends recently, and I was like, it felt like that shopping spree where you're just like on and you're like, I want everything. I'm finding everything I've been looking for. This is great. This is so exciting. But at the same time, I don't think that is the right move. I think you need to think about building in-house, else you're just going to spend a lot of money and you risk having buyer's remorse. I'm grateful. I am here to say I don't feel like we have buyer's remorse, but I think it would have been really cool to early on start learning how to build in-house more, bring on RecOps sooner, and really build that strength while also evaluating all the third-party tools. And I don't know what maybe the outcome could have looked like there, but In hindsight, there's some things I certainly would have done differently. I would have really set what are our hiring principles with AI, what's our candidate-facing messaging going to be on why we're using it. We're working on that right now with Talent by Design, which is the new spinoff of Growth by Design. So love Allison and Katie and team over there. But that should have been like step one versus now we're doing that at the end of our first year of really driving this transformation. From there, it would have been, let's look at all of the different tools available, do those workshops I did with my team, but also spend more time thinking about what should we build, what should we buy. Again, that's what I think like the Zapier team has done a phenomenal job with, and then really ran with it from there. So while it's been an impactful year, it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. Those are some of the things I think I would have done differently.
That's really interesting, Tommy. And shout out to the team at Talent by Design, like such a great group of folks. And I love the way Katie talks about problem-based recruiting. And there is this growing cohort of recruiting leaders and recruiting ICs that are thinking about hiring as a product. A lot of us obviously come from tech. We work with tech companies, scale-ups, enterprise tech, startups. We have to speak the language and to the sensibilities of our stakeholders. Yeah. Not every recruiter out there can go into their requisitions and their hiring manager intake meetings and say things like, we're going to create recruiting as a product. Like your stakeholders may not have any idea what you're talking about depending on the industry you work in. But I think for us that work in tech, it's really fun and exciting because it allows us to move from recruiters and order takers and this kind of white glove reactive space into true talent advisors. And that's why you see the field evolving, including roles like talent management, and then seeing your strategy of bringing an AI rollout from the voice of the people function. There are emerging roles like Chief HR and AI Transformation Officer. I think that's literally Brandon's title. And there's maybe 1 out of 5 that are doing that. But we're starting to see this philosophical movement where if you don't have it come out of the people remit, it may lose its luster and may use the humanity because there is a lot of fear out there. And a lot of that fear comes from layoffs. You talked a little bit about the ups and downs of Juniper Square as a startup. I've worked in startups for the last 5 years. Is part of what risk profile a candidate needs to sign up for when they're selecting a new role. But how did you manage that with your team going from 30 folks down to 5, back up to 11? What was that like?
Yeah, I think I really attribute a lot to our leadership team again on how they handled this. So we did do a reduction, but we were very fortunate that we didn't have to do it for like financial reasons. So some of it was due to our scaling and some feedback we were getting from our customers and just finding some efficiencies. And then it was getting the business into a state that going back to 2021, 2022, there was a lot of unknowns with the tech downturn and not knowing where that would lead us. So they wanted to make sure we built a really solid foundation that regardless of where it went, we would be okay. And thankfully, that got us through that time and we were able to continue to grow during that time. But one of the first things, of course, was let's slow down on hiring. We had built up a team quickly because we were going to go through rapid growth. And so, of course, that was really challenging. But what our leadership team did really was they shared the why behind it and what this means. And then we all came together to help our colleagues who are no longer here, help find new places. And we've seen a few come back. So I have 2 on my team right now that were on my team back in that day, part of that layoff, and then returned back, which I'm incredibly grateful for. So really, I think explaining the why, the business, that kind of comes back to what we talked about earlier about like business acumen. Like the more transparent and the more you talk about that, the more you're equipping your employees to be able to really talk the business talk and understand the risks and where the company is at, where is the market right now. So I think that was key. And then as we had scaled down and there was suddenly only a handful of us, this was the time that my mentor who hired me and we built this team together was moving on to her next opportunity. And one of my other colleagues was going out on leave and then coming back to a different role. So suddenly it was like 3 of us to just me. And I still remember the meeting. I brought my team together and I was like, all right, I'm getting thrown into this new role as global head. If I'm going to rise up, my number one goal is a year from now, you're all going to rise up. And let's talk about how we're going to do that together, because here's the roadblocks we're going to have ahead of us this year. We're scaling rapidly in India. We don't have a recruiter there yet, so we're working crazy time zones. We have more headcount than we've ever had before. We're launching new areas of the business that require new skills that we've never tested before. Like, how do we come together to be able to do that? And it was really rewarding. And then they all felt like they were really a part of it and they really understood where we're at and where we need to go over the next year.
That's really cool to hear, Tommy. I think about developing recruiters' skill sets for the future as a major minor. So if your major is software engineering hiring and
Mm.
you're going to hire 40, 50 roles a year, what's your minor? Do you want to do systems projects? Do you want to do maybe analytics projects? Do you want to do recruitment marketing and employer brand projects? And I think about the recruiter of the future being somebody that is this like expert generalist for full funnel, full candidate journey understanding. And I think gone are the days of just, hey, have a RC, have a sourcer, have the recruiter, maybe have a closer, and they all report to a team lead or a manager within a pod within the org chart that then goes to the director, VP. And then hopefully we live in a world where the VP of TA doesn't report to the CHRO anymore.
Yeah, it really has been interesting to see. And I think the biggest thing is like what works for us doesn't work for everyone. And again, that comes to like why it's so important to understand your business and have that business acumen to know what is right for the environment that you're in now and where is that environment going over the next couple of years and how do you set up a really scalable and agile team to be able to adapt to that. So we actually when I took over, we got rid of tech versus non-tech hiring. So my whole team is cross-trained. Now, do people still have, like you said, your major, like their areas of like deepest expertise? Of course, but they're not held to just being in technical recruiting now. So that way, as our business has shifted in different priorities quarter over quarter, my whole team can adapt to that. They also are cross-trained on geos. So all of my US-based recruiters understand the market in India. They can go hire in India. And then we got our first recruiter in India trained up on the US, which is their first time ever working on a US role, which is like a really cool skill to add to her toolbox, which has been really cool. So I think that helps. And then we always have projects within the team. So right now, everyone on my team is part of a project team that they have to use AI to be able to transform a certain project or process. So now they're testing out the AI. They're seeing, like I was just in a coaching meeting with one of the groups yesterday, and they're like, it's not working the way I thought it would. This is not going well. And I'm like, this is going exactly the way it was supposed to, because AI isn't always going to do what you need it to do. And they were like, we thought we were going to have the easiest project. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't always do the easy things we think it's going to do. Sometimes the hard things that we're like, I can't imagine AI helping with this are the things that it's making the biggest impact on. But this whole project is about learning. And what does it mean to dive in, experiment, learn, like network and hear what other people are doing around these different projects. So something that has worked for us is doing that cross-training geos and tech versus non-tech, managing these different projects, really testing out AI and how does that work. But again, that might not work for a 5,000 people TA function, but that works for us at 1,000 right now.
Yeah, I love that. The idea of having recruiters who can hire and recruit and partner with hiring managers in EPD or go-to-market or corporate G&A, I think is critical. It goes back to that idea of like just a rotational program. If you're just doing a rinse and repeat, like software engineering hiring, like you might get really good at that. But what if the market changes? What if the technology changes? Maybe software doesn't look the way it does now, and maybe hiring doesn't involve so many software engineers. So if you can have a breadth of focus now at each stage of your career as you ladder up, you'll always have something to be relevant to. And that's influencing without authority, connecting with great folks, learning how to sell a role and represent a brand, have storytelling, understanding closing techniques, and being able to deeply listen to the trends that come out of the generational differences of candidates for what motivates them to join a new company.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go back because I talked about interviewing and humans. Like that's what recruiters do. Let's talk about the AI interviewing. I'll give you my perspective. I think it's great, net positive. AI interviewing allows for the first time more qualified candidates in a rec to present their skills. If you're a recruiter, what are you going to do? You're going to skim the top 20 folks from a rec, get them into a phone screen and present the top 10 to a hiring manager. The reality is there may be more than 20 qualified candidates. And so when we look at the mandatory qualifications versus preferred qualifications, I think AI interviewing is going to blow up that section of a job description and that section of a recruiter intake. So I'm stoked on AI interviewers. What about you?
Yeah, it is one of the areas I'm most excited about right now. And we're just starting our trialing period. So we narrowed it down to 4 that we were interested in and then got it down to 2. But the first thing I'll start with here is I remember back in spring talking to our CEO about like this whole concept of an AI interviewer. And the thing we said, like, how powerful would it be to be able to say anyone that applies to Juniper Square gets the opportunity to tell their story. And you can eliminate a lot of those biases from just like a traditional resume review process. So I was really like leaned in on that. And I think we've come a long way since spring in the industry. Back in spring, it was a pretty hot topic where people were like very either for it or anti, but I would say at that time, more people were anti than probably for it. So that was a pretty bold statement to say, let's work towards exploring if that would work for Juniper Square. The beauty of AI and experimenting and talking with other TA leaders is being able to brainstorm. And I'm a part of some really cool communities like the Hire community. And through those, I learned a lot. And I actually learned that I actually don't know if having every single person apply do the AI interview makes sense. There's the business side of it and the cost, because this isn't like traditional SaaS where it's easy to just do an unlimited amount of output. There's a cost to the provider. Therefore, there's a cost for us. That's not fair to the candidate if they're not qualified. And candidates are using AI. So actually, a lot of them that are applying probably didn't really even look at our job. Side note, I'm not against that. I know obviously you need to have processes in place, but if we're going to use AI, we expect candidates are going to do it. We can't judge them for that. But obviously, we're seeing a huge uptick in number of applicants. We can get 1,200 in 24 hours now in the US. It's wild. So you start hearing what are some other people learning, and then you take some of those into place. I think our statement now will be like any qualified applicant will now have the opportunity to tell their story. We're on Ashby, who we love and have been with for a long time. So you can look at their like app review, see who most aligns with it, move those people forward. If they move forward, they get the AI interview. And our vision right now, and again, we're working with Talent by Design, and we're working with a RecOps consulting firm called Pattern HR, which I highly recommend, led by Kari Robson, if you know her. And through these partnerships and my vision and my team's vision, we don't want to replace the recruiter stream. That's not our take on this, but we want to enhance it. So we're thinking right now the AI interview will be more like, Brendan, tell me your career background and do that resume review, which we know often can take 70% of the first recruiter screen time. And then you're rushed to get into the hard skills and other things you need to test for. So having that be done there, walk through 2 or 3 hard skills that are required and really test for those. And then get some of the vitals, like what are you targeting for comp? What's your timeline? Some of these key things that will give us data and insights to be able to help influence our strategy moving forward. And then from there, when you look at who was the top performer, it's going to be based on the hard skills. It's not going to be based on timeline or comp or any of that. But it's nice that you still have that information collected, because now when they move forward to the recruiter screen, you can spend more time actually selling the company, really getting to know the candidate's motivations. What are the potential concerns that the candidate might have, and how do we make sure we mitigate that we don't get to offer before we cover what those are? And then from there, they can also prep them for their next step in the interview process, where now we have that as either an email or a separate 15-minute prep call that people have. And so I think if the candidates really understand the intent there, and that you still have that human in the loop, that recruiter, where they're really building that trust, that rapport early on, I think we could have a really solid process that can help drive a lot of major outcomes for us in terms of time to hire, pass-through rates, quality of hire, but it also will give the candidates a better experience as well.
Yeah, the importance of candidate experience, I think, is growingly concerning, because we have to remember recruiters asked vendors to make it easier for candidates to apply. It was everybody's got computers in their pockets now. They're applying from an iPhone. All the ATS vendors made easy apply, mobile apply. All of that happened for us because we experienced pain. Now it's, okay, how do we inject more friction into the process so that we can slow down, because cost per hire is increasing because of the operational costs to process 1,200 applicants in 24 hours. The conversion rate drops tremendously, but the number of candidates getting to that recruiter or hiring manager screen largely is staying the same until we get more granularity at the top of funnel. And I'm excited to be in the world of recruiting where recruiters go to a hiring manager with a strong quality of slate, So they've got 5 amazing candidates, and we don't hear from hiring managers, oh, let's just see who else is out there. Because that's how your process blows your time to fill goal. That's how your recruiters get burnt out and aren't treated with respect as advisors. If you can confidently explain to a hiring manager, hey, we're going to view 5 great candidates at the hiring manager screen. This is our process we're going to go through so that we can reverse engineer to have 2 candidates, 1 to offer and 1 as a backup. Exactly. I think that's just like the future we'll live in, but it's going to be challenging because it goes against what hiring managers' behaviors typically are in an employer's market, where they feel like they can have this slow to hire methodology and be very picky or see who else is out there. The perfect candidate is always N+1.
Yeah. I would agree. And then the power of like candidate rediscovery, right? That has been such a manual process in the past. And you pair like having Ashby and all of their incredible features along with a Bright Hire and now like an AI interviewer. The 2 that we're trialing that I'm super excited about are Talent Llama and Ezra AI Labs. And both of them really value that candidate experience and the just really helping make sure that like we're balancing the business outcomes we're looking for with attracting the right talent. But now when you have that ecosystem and you can go to a hiring manager and say, okay, here's what the summary that we got from their AI interviewer. Here's what we got in Bright Hire. Here's a 90-second clip of them talking through their background. You have so much data that you can now present to them. Or some hiring managers, of course, will be like, I think I need to have another round and I don't know if I tested for this. Like we can now go back between those 2 products and we can send a clip and say, here's where they talked about. Do you still feel like you really need to have that additional step? And really start to push back a little bit more on that. So I'm really excited to have that data readily available for us that would have been pretty tough or pretty manual in the past to get.
The idea of interview transcription came to market with this look mom, no hands-free recruiting. And it's, that's dope. But like as soon as it came out, it was like, yes, finally, recruiters have something to hold hiring teams accountable to from a visibility standpoint after the recruiter handoff. Because how many times have you previously been in an interview where you get that feedback from a hiring manager or you go through the loop and you don't have the candidate you want to move to an offer with and you slam your head against the wall because you're like, man, I wish I was in that room. I wish I could have heard what happened, maybe provided some coaching, maybe had a faster time to scorecard completion, maybe had a conversation in a debrief for each candidate. And we so often operate in a deferential way to the hiring manager because they are the decision maker. Yeah. So when we have interview transcription now, it's opened up an entire new world of being a strategic partner. And I think it should require hiring managers to stand up a little bit straighter. And that goes back to the candidate experience because candidates should feel like their time is respected, that they're listened to, that their answers are assessed against a rubric. And the only way to do that is, I believe, to have the accurate data that we can collect. And yes, it's a little surveillance type, but it's net positive.
Yeah, but sales has had it with Gong forever, right? And you think about like how much they spend on that and like the visibility that they have and the coaching that comes from it. But yeah, the most important decision we make is who you hire. We have no visibility. You can do all the best interview training in the world, give them the environment to do the best interview, and you don't know, and you just trust that they're following along, right? Now we're going to have that visibility and that insight, which is really cool. And we look for products that go a step further, right? So Bright Hire will send you coaching tips to the interviewers. They give me a scorecard each week on how well are we doing. Is anything flagged that shouldn't have been? Is our talk track ratio appropriate? I was talking to a TA leader once. They were going through a huge engineering push, and they had this hiring manager that it was just like brutal. This guy was like, no one's good enough. And then when they pulled the data, this person talked over 80% of the interview. It's like, you didn't even have time to assess any of these things that you're assuming they don't have. And when they went with Bright Hire. When they had Bright Hire, that person's pass-through rates went way up and their time to fill went way down because they weren't even really self-aware, which is really cool. Ezra AI Labs, I'm super excited about their feature for the AI interviewer. They actually send tips to the candidate on what they did well and maybe some feedback on where they could do better. So when you think about those who might not get to move forward, I hope that's still a value add that will help them in their search elsewhere.
This is like stakeholder management 101. leverage a third party? Like, how many times in your career before AI, when you're trying to make a point across, would you like leverage a research report or somebody who's super credible? If you bring in this idea of third party, I think hiring managers trust us, but it's cool to hear you talk about the candidate experience because I think that's what candidates want. Bias is not inherently good or bad, it just exists. And I actually believe candidates look for bias. They want to be treated like a human. They want to be connected with. And so we're not saying bias in a negative sense, but I think candidates want humanity. The more we see these algorithmic feedback loops and rage bait online, making a career decision is such a big moment in somebody's life. And I think that trust, that signal to be seen as a human is really important. And let's be honest, a lot of these tools we're talking about, these are for like IC level hiring. Much of this AI in the application of the hiring process is like for ICs, maybe some managers, but for the most part, director plus level hiring still looks like it has prior to AI. Those level candidates are still getting that kind of exec search motion. So the people using AI are going to be your ICs, your software engineers, your customer facing roles in customer success or sales. How have you seen candidates in various levels in their career have appetite to engage with these types of tools? And what does your director plus hiring look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we're still determining like where we're going to draw the line for our AI interview trials that start next week. We're probably going to do director and senior director and cut it off at VP. We'll see.
Okay.
I think that's a little bit more ambitious than others, but let's go big or go home and test it out. I don't know if I have a ton of data from what we've been practicing today to see how does like a director or VP candidate think about using AI in the interview process. Challenge is like most of the time at that level, you're sourcing or doing referrals anyways. You're not getting inbound. And a lot of this right now is built for like inbound. But then when we go back to like bias, how do you make sure that you're having an equitable process with those source candidates if the non-source candidates are having to go through like these AI interviewers and these additional steps through the application process? So we have to be really mindful of that. And that's some of the cool work that we can do with like talent by design as we really think about our AI principles that we're going to be rolling out. But in talking to people more broadly, I am hearing kind of your points, kind of like P1 to P, maybe like an M1 to M2, but those are our levels. But so basically up to like manager, but beyond that, a lot of people aren't putting a lot of investment into it right now.
Yeah, and I really appreciate what you said earlier about involving your legal team. And then there are two other pieces. It's close relationship with vendors and then close relationship with consultants. I think the talent function of the future is leveraging those relationships. It's not you, Tommy Hansen, making a decision in a silo based on your perception of the market, tools, methodology. It's, hey, let's have a full 360 view and do what's best for the candidates, for our hiring managers, for finance and budget through these market changes, and then also what's going on with legislation. Because you talked about involving legal, and I think about states that are rolling out emerging legislation for how AI is used in the hiring process. And the acronym is ADMT, Automated Decision-Making Technology. So vendors want to jump the shark and say, hey, we've got this AI thing that's going to help you reduce time to fill and increase quality of hire. And it's what actually is going on in the technology. So being able to bring in your legal team to make those judgment calls, it's all about risk mitigation, which at the end of the day, is hiring.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to really, it takes a cross-functional partnership across like your IT security, your finance team, your procurement team, and of course your legal team. And what we've actually did is we actually looked at some of our vendors and worked with procurement and finance, and our CFO has been a really cool partner through this. And we actually were able to negotiate a lot of contracts and then use that savings to then fund a lot of what we're doing here. And looking back on that, I think the biggest impact that we have from that was going into it with this common goal and like establishing a strong foundation of like, how can we go through this AI transformation together? And how do we think about like the costs associated with that? So yeah, the more people are going to lean into this, the more they need to really invest in those cross-functional partnerships. You can't do it alone.
And gone are the days, I think, of traditional benchmarks in the market where we bolt on AI to different processes or use AI in new ways. Like we can't trust traditional benchmarks or traditional metrics. You mentioned a new metric, which I love, the talk track ratio. Talk track ratio is going to be such an awesome metric that people will talk about in recruiting circles that did not exist previously. Are there any other metrics right now that you're excited about?
Yeah, so my core metrics right now are, so talk track ratio, that would be a good one for all of our interviewers. So we'll have that as we continue to roll out Bright Hire. But right now, the one that I care about the most is the on-site to hire ratio. So I don't actually look at how many recruiter screens each week my team is doing. I don't look at how much sourcing they do. I do look at our hires by source, and if our source rate is really low, I obviously want to dive into that and understand further. But I look at that on-site to hire ratio because if you're doing everything on the top of funnel, you should be able to maintain a really strong on-site to hire ratio. So for non-technical roles right now, we do 3 to 5. So our goal is to get 3 qualified finalists and then make our selection there. That way you have a nice backup candidate. You're building a really strong candidate bench for other roles that could be opening up. And of course, hiring managers feel like they got to really test the market. And then on the technical side, we're doing 5 to 1 right now. I'm not here to say like these are best in class, but they work really well for our business right now. Then I look at our NPS, of course, for candidate experience. From there, we also look at, I need to rethink some of these for India versus like the US too. Like, I think that's where it gets really tricky is like, how do you balance all of that? But nonetheless, regardless, we also look at time to fill. I think that's the one with India I really need to look into and what is fair there. I would say ours are more aligned to the US right now. We look at diversity at stage, so that's still really important to us. And then, of course, we look at our offer acceptance rate. So those are the core metrics currently.
Amazing. Tommy, I'll let you get out of here on time. How can people stay up to date with what you're doing? It's amazing work.
Thank you. Again, thank you for having me. This has been an honor. So the best way would just be on LinkedIn. So Tommy Hansen from Juniper Square. I'm on there quite a bit, so happy to connect. Messaging sometimes I think can be tough, but bear with me. I'll try to follow up as quickly as I can.
In the show, we talked about how small recruiting is from some mutual folks we know. Through the conversation, some more names popped up. So it's amazing to hear how small this world truly is. Hope this is a fast friendship and have an awesome weekend.
Thank you too. Enjoy your trip. Take care.